Hey everybody, Ashton here again with another tutorial video where today we're exploring our new Grid Reveal Gallery widget from Muse. This is a very unique gallery, as you can see, especially good for cases where you want to show off a gallery of images in a way that's a little different from the usual gallery. And this works especially well for galleries that use a lot of images. The gallery moves with your cursor in large galleries like this one, which means you can display a large number of images in a smaller space if you're looking to conserve space on your page. One last thing that makes this gallery special is that it has a few hover features built in. You can enable your cursor to show you a title as you hover over an image, and then once you click on a thumbnail, your cursor becomes a close button, so you can close full-sized images quickly and easily. That means that this will be a great situation for users to be able to preview images quickly. And this really is an attribute of this gallery, since oftentimes users will want to see a lot of images in a gallery, but they want to move quickly. And this is a widget that can respond to the speed of the common site visitor, never appearing slow or clunky. Pretty awesome. Let me switch over to Muse so we can dive right in. I'm going to use this page here built directly from the live demo that we just came from, but with the widget removed so we can see exactly how to set this thing up. So we'll jump into the library and drag out the widget and we'll drop it onto our page here beneath our header section. Now we can see here right off the bat that the widget container is pretty large, and this is the kind of widget you're probably going to want to stretch to full browser width in almost all cases. It's fully optimized for full width gallery usage. Now inside the settings panel, we can see our first option here is asking us for a Google Sheets URL. Now this widget uses a spreadsheet to manage the images. The main reason for this is because we found that this widget is best used with lots of images. And once you need to use more than like a dozen images or so, managing those in the widget options panel in Muse can become very slow and cumbersome. And this is feedback that we've received for years of making Muse widgets. It's difficult to manage so much in the widget options panel. And like our Connect widgets, you can update the gallery in a live Google Sheet instantly without needing to open Muse and republish. This would be great for those that update their gallery with new content often, like artists or photographers. So right here at the bottom of our panel, we have a link to our images template. Let's give that a click. And we're presented with a Google Sheet template already set to go for you to add in your own content. Now this default sheet is just our visual template for reference. For you to adapt it to your own, you'll need to make a copy of this spreadsheet so it can then be edited. So we'll go up here to File and select Make a Copy. And we'll give it a quick name. And click OK. So now we have the same spreadsheet, but now it's saved into my own account here and fully able to be edited. And as you can see, there are 3 columns to work with here: title, image, and thumbnail. Now the title is the text that shows up when you hover over the thumbnails. The image is the full-size image that you see once you click on a thumbnail. And the thumbnail, of course, is the smaller image that's shown in the full gallery grid. Now, the reason there are separate options for the image and the thumbnail is because as a best practice, you should always use a smaller image for the thumbnails and a larger image for the main images in order to keep page load speed optimized. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on the actual spreadsheet here. This is a concept we've been using for a very long time, and if you've used our Connect widgets, like the Gallery Connect widget, the concept of using spreadsheets to serve content will be very familiar. But that being said, I'm going to mention just a few things here before we move on. First being hosting. Now you'll notice that all of our images here on the sheet are entered as URLs, and that means that the images need to be hosted somewhere. And there are lots of options these days for image hosting. You can use Dropbox, Google Drive, or many other storage options, but probably the best way would be to upload them to your own host. Now that Muse sites need to be hosted on your own host, most of you are probably pretty familiar with uploads to FTP. If you have an FTP program like FileZilla, you can simply create a folder on your host and then drag all the images from your computer to the hosted folder. For options like Dropbox and Flickr, refer to the video playlist for the tutorials of the Gallery Connect widget. Next I want to mention is compression and optimization, and this is vital and cannot be expressed enough. Images need to be optimized for the web, always. One of the most common mistakes we see in websites is images not being optimized. And this can result in very slow load times, and in some cases the page will time out before it's even loaded. Even though the images are hosted, they should still be optimized, and you can use something like Lightroom, tinyjpeg.com, or JPEG Mini. You can also use the Save for Web option in Photoshop or other photo editors. So start by sizing the image's dimensions appropriately to something like 1500 pixels on the longest side, and then compress after that. This should reduce images from 6 to 8 megabytes down to 200 to 500 kilobytes. Last thing I want to mention here is thumbnails. Now for our demo, we created small images that are used for the thumbnails, and they're 400 pixels on the longest side. With a software like JPEG Mini or Lightroom, it's easy to batch process a lot of photos at once. So technically you can use the same images for both the image and the thumbnail, but the best practice would be to use smaller versions for the thumbnails. For the sake of demo, I'm going to keep the same images that we have here loaded in so that we can focus our time here on the actual widget functionality and the customization options. So the last step we need to do here, as always, is to publish the spreadsheet to the web. So I'm going to go to File, and we'll select Publish to the Web. Now we need to make this a CSV file, and we'll click Publish. And there we go. And we can close out of this, and now finally to get our Google Sheets URL, let's click up here to Share, and we'll select Get Shareable Link. And then we'll simply copy it. There, we're all done here. Let's jump back to the widget, and we'll paste the URL into the first field of the settings panel. So now let's explore the rest of these options. Here we have Grid Effect. This sets the animation style for the transitions of the images opening and closing, and there are 4 here to choose from. So feel free to play around and do some browser previews to get the exact one that you want. Let's choose Effect 2 for right now. Grid Columns. This sets the number of columns in the gallery, so more columns makes for smaller thumbnails and vice versa. And then Grid Columns for mobile. This, of course, sets the number of columns for mobile mode. Now we have Item Height, and this sets the height of the gallery thumbnails. And this should be used in conjunction with the Grid Columns setting in order to control the shape of the thumbnails. So note that you can manipulate these 2 settings to make thumbnails a square, or a landscape, or a portrait shape. I'm going to drop the columns to 5. And let's increase the height to 250, and what that will do is make the thumbnails larger in the gallery. Now for background color, this sets the color of the background of the gallery grid. Now if you always have a full grid, you're not actually even going to see the background, but what this is for is when a row is not complete. So for example, if you have 5 columns and 5 rows, a full grid would consist of 25 images, but if you only had 22 images, you would see the background color where those 3 images would go. Next up is Enable Custom Overlay. This allows you to set an overlay color and opacity of your choosing, and there is a default overlay applied if this setting is not enabled. Then we have Show Custom Cursor, and this is a really unique part of the widget, and it shows a circle icon cursor while you hover over the thumbnails, and also an X close button while an image is open. You can enable or disable this feature. We'll keep it on, but we'll change the color of both to our orange, FA6900. Now note that on mobile, this feature is automatically turned off since touch devices can't utilize a hover mode. Show Title Next to Cursor. As the name implies, this enables the title you see when you hover over gallery thumbnails, and the title comes from the title column in the spreadsheet. And the remaining settings here allow you to style up the title text along with a preloader color, and let me change that to our orange as well, FA6900. Now let's give this a browser preview. Beautiful. Our images are loading in wonderfully. Our cursor looks great, and it's navigating us throughout the gallery as we move our mouse around the grid. We can move the cursor around to reveal more images up and down within the gallery. This functionality will depend on how many images there are and the height of the widget container. And if you didn't want that function at all, you could increase the size of the widget container. So that about covers it. Thanks so much for joining me. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us in support. Take care, and we'll see you next time here at MuseThemes.com.